You ever find yourself having trouble sticking to something like quitting smoking or quitting drinking or staying on top of your diet? Huge reasons I figured out, something that I've been able to battle and have more successes on, are the triggers that come my way in life, the outside stimulus and even often inside stimulus things that come about that cause a thought or a reaction in our brain to make us want to do a certain thing or feel a certain way. A good example would be if you're trying to quit smoking cigarettes and you're on day 5, day 6, and you go outside to take out the trash and you see a cigarette butt on the ground and you're triggered to think about cigarette smoking, and the next thing you know, you're walking over to a neighbor's house bumming a smoke. Another good example is when you're walking out of a store, minding your own business, and you smell in the air something that's a restaurant put out into the air to hijack your senses, and then bam, you find yourself in that fast food line when you just bought dinner, but now you're in the fast food line. Another example of a trigger is, say you're trying to quit drinking, and you go over to your buddy's house and you got a few buddies over there that are drinking and they're having a great time, and it's kind of triggering you. And the next thing you know, you're having a beer with them. Maybe you showed up, you weren't expecting them to be drinking, and there you are, triggered. Now, all these I'm talking about is of a very low conscious mind where you have to be fairly weak to what it is you're trying to quit to just crumble so quickly. But I guarantee we've all been there. If you're on a diet, for example, and you're doing really good, then all of a sudden an outer stimulus deflates you, you get some bad news, the next thing you know, you don't feel very good, and you're inside the cupboards eating the rest of whatever's left there that was sweet, that you're going a hunt for it. You didn't know it was in the house, but you found it. It's all gone. These inner and outer triggers, some just from how our brain works in general, I couldn't tell you the exact science behind it. There's plenty of YouTube and other places that you could find they break down the science of triggers, get into some nice editing and tell you all about it. But I'll just tell you one thing, your brain is a very weak thing, likes taking shortcuts, likes taking the easy way out, and by nature is very lazy, and if it's not feeling very good, it's going to try to go to the quickest way for it to feel better, no matter what it is. That if it's going to eventually make you even worse, you're still going to go do it because right now it's going to feel good. A huge reason why when people have bad news, they always find themselves down at the bar for happy hour so they can drink their sorrows away. With their livers and extra calories and whatever else their responsibilities they need to be taken care of aren't getting taken care of. You get some bad news or someone breaks up with you, someone dies, and the next thing you know, you're down in a fifth of something. The reason why it's important to know what triggers are, so that when they happen to you, because it's all happening at a subconscious level if you don't know what's going on. You're just reacting to the chemicals in your brain, that's all it is. We think we're making decisions on our own, but our brain is already making decisions before we even have time to think. And by the time we feel bad about what we did, our brain's already gotten it done. Gave up on the diet, gave up on trying to not smoke, gave up on the new fitness plan, gave up on the New Year's resolution. So you just have to step in and intervene. It's not even when you know about the triggers that get you, both in your mind and in the outer world, it's still hard to combat them a lot of the time, especially in the beginning. Once you get better at it, you have a lot easier time of combating it for sure. Big reason why supermarkets, they have all those aisles right by the register with the gum and the magazines and the candies. That stuff's all there just to trigger you to make an extra purchase. You didn't go to the store to buy that thing. You're just looking at it, oh, a payday. And next thing you know, you got a payday. It triggered you, something sweet, something funny, a magazine, you pick it up, whatever. It distracts you, gets your attention, and then boom, next thing you know, you're buying stuff you didn't need. Or it's there to get your kids to cry and want it too. They're triggered, the kids are triggered, they have no idea what's going on. These little wonders walking around, just triggered after triggered. Outer stimulus is just getting them by the moment. So anything just entering our ears, entering our eyes, entering our nose, our senses are a huge thing that picks up on these triggers. They're like receiving towers. They're picking up on the energy, and then in real time we're doing something physically, whatever it is. We heard it, now we're thinking it. We smell it, now we're thinking it. We saw it, now we're wanting it. We didn't want it before, we got hijacked. Huge reason why advertisement is so prevalent everywhere, because they've studied and they understand how people are easily triggered. Once you can brainwash them enough to think a certain way, you create a culture, and now this culture is combating and competing for these things that they find to be so important that really aren't. They think that their tennis shoes are more important than their neighbor. So they're just fighting all this stuff that they're being advertised. And it's not that it's all a bad thing. It's just you got to be smarter than it, because it's all around you. And all they want to do is take your money, take your health, take basically your life. That energy goes into their pocket. While they're on their yachts, you're left in the gutter to rot. So I highly encourage you to learn as much as you can about the outer stimulus that is triggering you to make an impulsive decision or compulsive decision, or a decision that's not for your best interest, and develop the ammunition you're going to need to defend yourself. Because you're not going to defend every bullet, every triggered thing that comes your way. It's virtually impossible. You'd have to be in monk mode on steroids, be up in a mountain somewhere, meditating and levitating, nothing else around you to even get into your senses, to trigger you to do anything. So learn as much as you can. Kind of notice too throughout the day, if you feel an impulse of something you weren't thinking, and then you're like, how come I want that thing? I turned my TV on, I wasn't thinking about Taco Bell, and now I want a soda and a taco. Like, just notice it. And then you'll start becoming better at it. And when you start to master it, instead of falling for everything, begging for your attention, your money, that doesn't necessarily have the best intentions for you, you'll be able to combat it. And if you can win at least 80% of the time, you'll do pretty good. Sometimes there's inner triggers of things that happen too, old things that come up, and you got to pay attention to those as well. They're not just coming from the outside world, they're also from within you, from past traumas and experiences and habits and all that kind of stuff, like why you can go a few days without doing drugs, or few weeks, few months, and then you relapse. You got some inner things going on. You don't even really need an outer stimulus at that point. You got some inner stuff happening. Next thing you know, you're off to go get whatever it is you're trying to not do. So learn as much as you can. Figure out what's triggering you. There are good triggers, but I want you to focus on the negative triggers. Trying to lose weight, figure out what's triggering you to get off of your path. If it's because you have a bunch of junk food in the house, and every cupboard you open, there's a bunch of junk food, that's going to trigger you to want to eat it. Get the junk out of your house as much as possible. Try to get the other people involved in the house to do the same. It's a teamwork, makes a dream work type thing. Cheers to your health.